Good afternoon, everyone. It is afternoon. I had been planning to do this video since this morning. And yeah, if you can't tell, I am extremely uncomfortable doing this video. I don't know why. It's not like I haven't told people I'm ADHD. It's just really weird going back in my memory banks and thinking about how it got to this point. So, if you have not been at this channel before, my name is Rosalind, and I run a channel that talks about motivation, healthy eating, anything that falls in those realms. But right now, today, we are starting my series on ADHD. I have been ADHD now that I realize probably since I was a child, but of course, being a child of the 70s, it was definitely undiagnosed. I'm sure there are some people out there that have gone through the same things that I have gone through, and they will be like, oh crap, I didn't know that was it. But yeah, so where do I begin? My ADHD started probably, I'll say the time I remember it was when I was in sixth grade. I had a teacher, a math teacher that I could not stand, not because of the math, I just didn't like him. And I remember him telling my mother that I daydreamed too much. And I remember being that daydreamer. Oh my God, I remember on those snowy days looking through that darn gate over the window at PS24 and looking out and looking at the snowfall. And I was just like, this is the life. It just gave me life. And I wanted to be outside so bad, running in the snow, and got caught up in the rapture. I wasn't listening to him. I didn't hear anything he had to say, especially in math class. So it was a wrap. And that was the beginning of the journey, but still undiagnosed, because it's the 70s. Actually, it's the early 80s, and no one was paying attention to ADHD, in my opinion. And they probably definitely were not paying attention to ADHD in girls because they were so used to the boys running all over the classroom. And I remember from early elementary school, always that kid, watching that kid, run around the classroom and, the teacher trying to contain them and couldn't. But I think because of the fact that I was a female and I wasn't failing class, it was harder to detect. And I feel like women are still harder to detect than men because the symptoms are different, So I have to say that because of the fact that I excelled in school for the most part, and I was a voracious reader, I was reading at high levels very early in life. That wasn't what they were looking for. ADHD wasn't what they were looking for. So now we fast forward, right? And we're in college. And I'm looking so forward to being a journalism major because I knew I wanted to be a writer. But I had such a time concentrating. I had to make a deal with myself. I was like, okay, Roz, as long as you have a 3.0 GPA, you're good. Just get through this. You could get through these 4 years. It was the roughest 4 years of my life, but I did graduate. The first 2 years were full of fun, but after the fun people left and we had to actually buckle down in third and fourth year, I was like, this could be the time that I could really drop out of college. And I thought about it. The summer between the second and third year of college, I thought about dropping out because I was just like, I don't want to do this no more. The fun people are gone. I don't want to do this anymore. But the only thing that kept me there was I had friends that I hung out with. And I didn't want to leave my friends and I didn't want to get left behind. And I felt like, my grandmother, I lived with her, and it was because of her that I was in college to that extent. And I felt like I don't know what the word is. It just didn't feel right if I didn't finish, you know. So you understand what that means. It was just like my grandmother had died my first year in college, and I would just felt like she would have rolled over in her grave if I didn't finish. She probably wouldn't have, but in my brain, whatever it took to get through college. And so once again, we're in college. I'm struggling, but I'm getting through, you know. But I'm okay with that 3.0 GPA. As long as I kept up a 3.0 GPA, I was happy with myself. So here we go into work life. Still undiagnosed, but aware that something isn't right. And if you ask my friend Rose, she was the one that said I had mentioned that I thought I might be ADHD. And actually, when I went back and I read my diaries from like that time in my early 20s, I did write that. I did write down that I thought I may have been ADHD, but did nothing about it at that point. Probably didn't know what to do about it because, once again, it wasn't being talked about. So I get into the work world, and I'm okay in the work world. I'm an executive assistant, and I was okay at it. I was doing okay. I was more balanced out and okay when I was being an EA, but I was also doing creative stuff. And so I spent my whole 20s doing creative things, graphic design, web design, writing, all of that I was doing in my 20s and balancing that out with working as an executive assistant, which at the time it was working for me until I hit my 30s and I started to move up the ladder in the EA world. And that's when it became a little bit more of a struggle because I had to be focused and I had to be multitasking and keeping things together and keeping track of things, which is not fun for a person who is undiagnosed ADHD, no medication, no type of therapy, anything. So I think the wake up point for me was when I was at my desk one day, and I remember this as clear as day. My desk looked like a bomb went off on it. But you couldn't tell me at that point that I didn't have it together. I was like, I don't need lists. So whenever I hear somebody say to me right now that's undiagnosed ADHD or unmedicated, but maybe diagnosed but don't want to be medicated, I always say, whenever I hear them say, I don't need lists, I'm like, oh, I remember being that person. Bless you. Because I was just like, I remember that day at the desk with the bomb that went off on it. And I happened to shuffle through the papers on the desk and I found something that I should have given to my boss like a week ago. And I was like, I can't do this. This isn't good. I need something. I need something. So you would think at this point that I'm like, okay, I need something. I'm going to go to the doctor and he's going to figure it out. That didn't quite work out like that at all. No, it didn't work out. So I went to the doctor, and the first thing he thought, because I was suffering some depression, and I think it wasn't really depression, it was my ADHD that was causing me to be down because I felt like I wasn't able to work at my best, you know. And I felt like, well, if I try to antidepressant, maybe it'll work. And some of them did work. And I'll tell you right now, sidebar, I am the queen of antidepressants. I have been on almost probably way too many of them trying to fix ADHD. So if you think you have ADHD and you're on antidepressants, go get checked because it just may not be. But yeah, on antidepressants and trying that, and one of them really worked really well. Wellbutrin was great. That one worked well, but it only worked to a certain point, and we were back at ground zero again with this. And here was the turning point. The turning point was I went back to the doctor because of my blood pressure. Totally different situation. Went back regarding my blood pressure, was telling my doctor he had just put me on a new med, and it was making me very sleepy during the day. And I was like, I can't take this medication. This is making me way too sleepy. And so you know how doctors give you a medication to take and they're like, well, this is not really for this, but it works in other ways. So they use a medication in other ways. I don't know what doctors call it, but you know, they'll use a medication in another way. And so what did he do? He gave me a new medication, a new ADHD med that was out there called Vyvanse. This was back in probably 2008. And I remember him saying this should counteract the sleepiness of the blood pressure med. If I tell you when I went home, the next day I took my blood pressure med and I took the Vyvanse. If I tell you I went through my whole house and reorganized my whole house and cleaned my whole house, that's how life-changing it was for me to get on medication. It was like this veil lifted and I could do anything. Anything. I my work life like shot through the roof. That's when I went from just being an EA to being an EA in the C-suite, which is with the CEOs and the COOs of the world. It was the time when I went back to school I went to grad school and had a 3.8 GPA while working full time. I was like, yeah, something is definitely different here. And that was the time when I was just like, I'm finally diagnosed. Got off the antidepressants and never looked back. You know, the great thing is, I was on Vyvanse from like 2008 to probably 2019. And the only reason I got off of it is because of New York City's draconian prescription drug laws. I would have to jump through so many hoops to stay on Vyvanse when I moved back to New York. They're very strict about, any type of controlled substances, and Vyvanse is a controlled substance. They would have wanted me to see a psychiatrist, and I was just like, moving back to New York was stressful enough. I was just like, I don't have time for this. And, it was like forever to even get a psychiatric appointment, which is everywhere. But at least when I was living in South Carolina, your primary care physician could write you up a prescription for it. But it was like in New York, it was just like, no, primary care physicians have no power when it concerns prescription medications like Vyvanse. And so I was just like, well, I'm going to have to take myself off of it. And I did. But the good thing that I learned was that I didn't have to stay on it, because I had developed the habits over the years from being on the medication, that when I got off the medication, I was doing fine. I was doing well. And on top of that, I got my creativity back. I felt like when I was on the Vyvanse, I lost some of the creativity. And so the one thing that I did learn from being on it was that if I had to do it over again, I would have not been on it on the weekends and just taking it during the week, or taking it just when I needed to take it, like when I needed to do like heavy EA work where I needed to really focus well and stuff like that. If I had to do it over again, I would have, penny pinched when I took it, because it was still expensive at the time, and I'm sure it still is because there's no generic for it. And I probably would have been okay. But being off of it since then, I've been okay. And I've only felt the need to maybe be back on it again since I just started a new job. But even now, I've balanced out, and I have started to focus a little more, by taking ashwagandha, just doing some more natural things. You know, the only thing that I miss with the Vyvanse is not having the carb cravings. I used to always have carb cravings if I was off of it, like around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The carb cravings would hit, and I was like, "What is going on? Why?" And I think because of the fact that somehow it regulates that. I think, because usually if you're ADHD, you tend to have low dopamine. And so I'm always trying to think of ways to get my dopamine up. Another reason why I kind of miss Vyvanse is because I am now in that perimenopause, menopause stage, and I am really feeling the brain fog from that. So I think that is like overriding everything, but I'm just like, it'll be okay. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm just like, please don't let it get worse. Because I really now don't want to get back on it. Even though I think it was great for me, it totally worked. And I would be fine if I had to get back on it, but I really am trying not to. So, what I did start taking, and when I say just started taking it, I literally just started taking it this week. I started taking this homeopathic medication called Brilio, that a friend recommended. And I'm curious how that's going to be. I side eye a lot of things, but I was just like, it's not going to hurt me to try it. And at least if I try it, I have 90 days to take it. And if it doesn't work for me, I can still get a refund. So I'm just like, wait a minute, this may work. This may work in more ways than one. So they have it, you take a certain amount depending on how severe your ADHD is. I don't see that it's going to help with the cravings, but it's supposed to help with like the restlessness, the anxiety, um, concentration, things like that comes with ADHD. I wish it said cravings. I wish it helped with cravings. I really do, but it's okay. I'll figure that part out. But yeah, I wanted to share that with you because a lot of people have been asking about ADHD, and since I said I was going to discuss it, this has been extremely hard for me to discuss. But it's a part of my life and it's a part of who I am. So I feel like I have to discuss it. And I have so many other things that I want to discuss on this journey. I think I probably have like 12 or so. I got a lot of topics on this, midlife, being creative and having ADHD, which I think I'm going to cover next week. That's what I'm covering next week. Being a creative and being ADHD. That's challenging if you want to be medicated because you'll get some things done and it'll slow some other things down and you just kind of find a balance. And I'm finding a balance now, and I do want to share that for the people out there specifically who are like me, who are creatives, who may be still working in the corporate world like I am, or you just feel like you're not getting a lot done, but you don't want to give up being creative while being on medication. So yeah, and at some point I'll probably be talking about the different ADHD meds out there. I have only tried two, the Vyvanse and Adderall. Adderall did nothing for me. I tried it for a hot second. I was like, nope, because I was trying to find a cheaper way to do this ADHD medication thing, and everything doesn't work for everyone. And so we're gonna discuss that, and we're gonna discuss some other things because clearly there are a lot of people out there who are ADHD, and I really feel for the people who are adults and just being diagnosed because I'm sure life has been a living hell at times. You get people who don't get it, they don't understand you, they don't want to understand, they don't understand your quirks and why you do things the way you do, or why you can't get certain things done, or why they think you're procrastinating on things. Yeah, I get it. I'm there. We're there. I'm there with you. I got it. So we're gonna come back next week and we're gonna talk about that, and hopefully this will get easier for me because I'm telling you this was hard. This was a hard conversation, and I felt some sort of way even writing it up last night because I went through like every emotion that I felt since I was a child, undiagnosed. But it's good to be where I am now, and there is a better place, when you are diagnosed, and there are things that you can do to make your life easier, and there are other things that I use that I will be discussing as well. So on that note, I hope you have a great day, and please subscribe. I want to say thank you to the people who have been subscribing lately. I appreciate it. I hope you do enjoy the channel. There'll be things that you'll be interested in and things that maybe you won't. That's fine. But like, subscribe, like people say. Do what moves you is what I always tell people. I try not to make people subscribe, but it would be nice, because then that tells me that you're here and that you're coming back and that you'll be in the know about what I drop. So until the next time, thank you and talk to you later. Bye.